Hey everyone, James here again. It's 2021, so it's time that we make some predictions about the year ahead. To be honest, this is one of my favorite videos that we make on Music Biz every year, and I want to apologize for how poorly my predictions were in 2020. But in my defense, no one saw what happened last year coming. I mean, nobody saw the coronavirus coming. Nobody would have predicted that we'd go 9 months without live music or the ripple effect that that would create. But going into 2021, I'm pretty optimistic for the future. I know that it's been a hard year, but we're ready for a change, and that change is going to be positive. I can feel it. So let's get into the predictions. Now, the first question on everyone's minds when talking about the music business in 2021 is when live music will return. And I think it's really hard to have a definite answer because we've already seen a few socially distant outdoor shows happen, and if you live in other parts of the world, you might even have full-scale concerts happening. But full-scale concerts in the United States with regular touring, I predict, won't be back until the fall of 2021. I know that we're all hoping for summer, myself included, and maybe we'll get there by like August, September, but I think it's going to be the winter months that really see a return of live music. And the reason for that is a few things. One being the rate at which we can vaccinate people, our ability to control the coronavirus, and also just the consumer confidence in going to live events. Because just because we get a vaccine and just because infection rates start to fall doesn't mean that people are going to be ready to be packed in like sardines at a concert venue. I know you and I may be because we are giant music fans and we are craving that return, but a traditional normal level of live music performances, touring capacities, I think we won't get there until the fall of 2021. And before that, we will see various attempts to figure out new ways to work around that. We will see some indoor venues start to roll out shows probably by early summer. They'll be socially distant, limited capacity, and we'll slowly lower those restrictions until we're right back at it again, hopefully by the fall. Continuing our talk about live music, I think 2021 will see the rise of what I'm calling hybrid performances. And by that, I mean concerts that have a live streaming component. I mean, we've already seen something like that in 2020. I don't think anybody really could have predicted just how successful live stream concerts would become, kind of out of necessity. But as we get back into regular touring and regular performances, labels and artists would be foolish to leave the money from live streaming on the table. They're going to want to capitalize on it. They're going to want to double down. And some big artists, like Garth Brooks, for example, have already talked about adding a live streaming component to their upcoming shows. I mean, it only makes sense. A tour can only hit so many cities and so many regions. Why not take 1 or 2 dates out of a tour and add a live streaming component if the venue is able to handle that kind of setup and sell tickets for it online? Then you could sell out 10 gigs in 10 cities, and on the 10th date, also sell live stream tickets to anybody around the world that wants to watch. All of a sudden, you've gone from a 500 capacity club, which has 500 tickets sold at max, to a 500 capacity club, hopefully sold out, that also has thousands of people watching online. The amount of revenue that you can generate from something like that is really hard to calculate. I mean, there's the sale of the ticket, but also the potential to sell merch for that, or even exclusive merch for that one live stream event. There's no way that we're going to put the genie back in the bottle when it comes to live streaming. So as artists get back out there on the road, rest assured, if you're not comfortable going out yet, or your favorite artist isn't coming to your town, you will more than likely still be able to watch them online, though it may be for a price. As for music discovery in 2021, I'm predicting that we will continue to see TikTok play a major role in discovery of all genres. In 2020, more than 170 songs had 1 billion plus plays on TikTok. More than 90 songs from TikTok ended up on the Billboard 100, and more than 70 artists who got their rise to fame on TikTok ended up with major label deals. And that's not even counting all the independent artists who found 1 or more songs going viral on the platform. TikTok is creating legitimate stars, and the real test will come when live music returns, because there's this new era of musicians who have existed almost entirely online who are going to have the ability to expand their audience and expand their revenue by getting out there on the road. And it'll be really interesting to see how many of those TikTok kids who've fallen in love with a certain artist because of a video clip end up at a show supporting a full set. I don't know what will come of it, but I do think that we will continue to talk about TikTok, and who knows? Maybe Triller and some of the other competing apps will produce a few stars as well. But as far as I'm concerned, TikTok is the gold standard for discovery right now, and it's really hard to see that changing. Speaking about genres that people should be paying attention to, I know a couple of years ago everyone was talking about SoundCloud rappers, and after that came TikTok rappers. But I think we're going to see guitar music get a new audience in 2021. A few things are pointing to this. One of them being the #1 debut of Machine Gun Kelly's Tickets to My Downfall, which seemed to introduce an entirely new generation of kids to the idea of pop punk music. And while I don't think that pop punk itself is going to have some major second coming or third coming or whatever you want to say, I do think that there are bands in that realm, as well as a lot of artists that are maybe in the emo rap phase that are introducing guitars, who are going to have a very big 2021. Two groups in particular that come to my mind are Bearings, a Canadian pop rock band, and Grayscale. These bands both put out amazing records recently that towed the line between punk and rock and indie and pop very well. Big hooks, big guitars, rabid fans. And I think with everything that's happening in pop culture regarding guitar-driven music, specifically things like MGK or what Taylor Swift did with her last 2 records, I think these bands are in the perfect position to see major growth in 2021. And why not dive into the topic of releases? Because let's be honest, 2020 was a weird year for new music. As soon as the coronavirus hit, a lot of major releases were shelved, and a few of them dripped out as the year continued on, but labels of all sizes are sitting on a backlog of recorded music that they're waiting for the perfect time to drop, and nobody knows when that's going to be. Originally, back in the early months of 2020, it seemed like that was going to be the fall, and now that we got to the fall and winter, it seems like it was going to be the first quarter of 2021. But now that we're not seeing live music return until summer or fall or even 2022, hopefully not 2022, but we gotta be honest here, people are thinking that it's going to be a little bit later in the year. So I think the first half of 2021 could be relatively slow in terms of major releases. I mean, there are a lot of artists who seem to have music in the can. Drake comes to mind as an example of somebody who's been promising music for a long time. But why would he release music if he can't go out there and perform it? I mean, there's a lot of money invested in major label stars, and unless they're in a position to make major label money back in return, those albums aren't going to come out. And if you're a mid-level artist on an independent label, the same rules apply. You're in debt to your label for a large amount of money, and if you can't guarantee that through streams and pre-orders, there's no reason to release that music until you can actually make something back from it. So I think as we get further into the year, the frequency of really big albums coming out or long-awaited albums is going to grow. We're going to see a very heavy summer, fall, winter 2021 in terms of the volume of releases coming out. And hopefully they're really good. I mean, obviously we hope they're really good, but that remains to be seen. I just know there's going to be a lot of it, which means the competition to be something that stands out and actually grabs and holds our attention is going to be at an all-time high. And one other thing about releases and release strategies. I think something that's happened as a byproduct of 2020 is that a lot of artists find themselves in a position where they have a lot of recorded music, and there's going to be this desire to put it all out at once. I know country star Morgan Wallen, who has absolutely exploded on the country scene in 2020, largely as a result of TikTok, has a double record coming out in the months ahead. I think that there's this desire to do that, to put all this music out at once, but what's far more likely to happen is that we're going to see bigger and bigger stars with these long tails of new music, where they're putting out one single every month or every couple of weeks, and it goes on and on and on, just consistently feeding their fan base. Because again, competition is going to be fierce in 2021. For every dollar, every consumer second that is available to artists to claim, the competition is going to be high. So if you're an artist at any level with a big catalog of music, why would you waste that on one big album drop? Stretch it out. Drop a single, drop a visualizer, drop a lyric video, drop a music video, then drop the next single and repeat that process over and over again for as long as you possibly can. If it builds up to an album release, that's great, but I think we're going to see a lot more artists go the single route for as long as possible. One more thing I predict we'll be talking about a lot in 2021 are artist partnerships with brands. Now this is nothing new, it's been happening forever, but with the lack of live music and artists seeking new revenue streams, more and more brand partnerships seems to be in the mix. I mean, if we look at someone like Lil Nas X, who went through 2019 with one of the biggest singles of all time, Old Town Road. In 2020, he didn't put out a ton of music, but he did have partnerships with Postmates, Starbucks, and other major brands. He didn't record jingles for these companies, he didn't talk about them every chance he got, but he did these really cool creative campaigns where he sent a bunch of gifts through Postmates to people around the holidays, and he bought Starbucks for fans all over the country. There are these creative campaigns that happen only because one creative force partners with another creative force, and they start conversations that make people feel good, give things to consumers, and raise awareness for both brands. I think that this is the kind of thing every artist wants, and as we seek new revenue streams, more and more brand partnerships are going to be sought. Maybe we'll see an artist team up with Topo Chico, or a shoe brand, or clothing brands, or department stores, or fast food chains. The possibilities are limitless, and I bet we're going to see a lot of them in the new year. Speaking of partnerships, I also think collaborations between artists will be a growing trend in the new year. Now, these were traditionally something that you see a lot of in hip-hop. A young rapper starts to take off, and the remix features bigger artists who can co-sign their fame. But again, going back to things like the Machine Gun Kelly incident with Tickets to My Downfall, there is also space in the rock, metal world, and the country worlds for artists of all sizes to work together, even cross-genre collaborations. Because as a result of the streaming economy, nobody is just listening to one thing anymore. If you like pop music, for example, you probably listen to a dozen variations of pop music, as well as a little bit of country and a little bit of rock, and you probably dream of what might be possible if your favorite pop star and your favorite rock star got together to make music. And I think that we're learning that there's a really big market for these kind of collaborations when done well. So as artists remain in quarantine, remain in isolation, and are recording things digitally and working from all over the country, I think some interesting partnerships may start to form. We may see the very popular Warped Tour style band partner with the very popular pop star to create some unique crossover track that brings their audiences together, because artists recognize that as listeners themselves, they don't just listen to one thing. They like a lot of stuff. So why not throw those things together and see what comes of it? And lastly, jobs. I know that you're wondering about jobs because a lot of people lost them in 2020, but I think in 2021, we're going to see a gigantic boom in job growth. It may not happen until the fall when live music returns, and it may not be the same jobs that we lost because a lot of companies that survived this year found a way to make do with less employees, but there are going to be job opportunities, a large amount of them. And if you need a place to look for jobs, I highly recommend the Music Industry Job Board. It can be found at haulixdaily.com, that's HAULIX daily.com. There's a free job board there. They post 40 to 50 job listings every single week, if not more, and by the end of 2021, I bet we see a large number of the jobs we lost in 2020 recovered, as well as hundreds, if not thousands, of new jobs as emerging technologies and emerging trends in consumer behavior give way to new opportunities for employment. So stay tuned, because I'm going to be talking about that a lot in the year ahead. Now, I have a lot more ideas on what's going to happen in 2021, but suffice to say, I'm very excited, and I hope you are too, because every week I'm going to be bringing you updates right here on the Music Biz channel. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. And if you have, if you're already a part of this community, then thank you for sticking around, because you make my job possible, and I am forever indebted to you for that fact. Until we talk again, please, no matter what you do in this life, take care of yourself, because you deserve it.